The road to success is rarely a straight line. It's full of twists and turns, detours, redirections, hills and valleys. So join us on the path to success as we explore people's personal journeys. Come be encouraged, informed, and empowered to reach your dreams. Hi, thank you for joining the podcast today. And today's podcast, Surviving Layoffs Community Conversation. Right, we're going to be talking about embracing change. And I am excited today because the guests on the podcast are my brothers. You can see we look alike right here. So let me introduce first, in North Carolina, my brother, Mark Pendergrass. Mark has been at Wells Fargo for 35 years in a number of roles. Right now, he's actually an assistant vice president in their information technology business unit, but also he's the founder and executive director of Creating Exposure to the Arts. And that's a nonprofit educates, empowers, mentors youth by providing exposure through artistic expression. Mark, will you say hi to the podcast audience?
How you doing?
And then my other brother here is Cornell. And Cornell has actually been in the insurance industry for 31 years. And in that, he's been a VP at Core Assurance. He's been a VP at Connor Strong and Buckaloo. He's been a VP at the Rutherford Group. He's been a VP at Marsh & McClendon, Rutherford is a Marsh & McClendon company. He's currently a senior executive at Odell Studner. Mark, Cornell, would you say hi to the people?
Good day, people. How are you?
And as you guys know, I'm Boris Pendergrass. I'm a software professional, and the impetus of the podcast was my book, Surviving Layoffs. 26 years in the IT industry, 3 times my name being on that layoff list, and each time finding opportunities inside and outside of the company. So we want to talk about embracing change. One of the things that we've all been through is that change is still having good success. As you can see, they've both been VPs. I've never had the VP title. I'm always trying to get them to take the check when we get together for lunch. But hey, Mark, I want to start this conversation about embracing change with you. One of the things you shared with us is that when you first were in your career, you were actually on an acquisition team that were looking at companies to take over. Talk to me a little bit about that, and then how you guys were acquired.
So I was on an acquisition team that would go in and actually visit locations that we were looking at taking over. Or actually, at that point that we knew we had already acquired them, we'd have to go in and kind of look at whether it was contents in a branch, software, hardware, equipment, just to see, also evaluate if this is a space that we're going to continue to use. If we're not going to use this space, what can go, what can we keep? So all those things are part of our reporting, right? Traveling to these locations. And this was in the DC, Virginia, Jersey area, traveling to those locations with a team and kind of looking at what will survive, and not really on the HR human capital side, but really just on the physical side. But the HR side of it is as important, right? What do we keep? What do we, and what can we utilize? And then after we make that assessment, then it moves on to another area to kind of make the final decisions. But then, fast forward, after being on that team for a couple of years, here we are on the other side of that, where I would go visit locations, somebody was visiting my office. Somebody was visiting our branches, right? So having them walk in and look and ask me questions about how does this process work? How does this, what do you, so, and me being in that space, knowing, okay, I know what's about to happen.
So now, what was your thought process? I mean, they're coming in the room, you know what's going to happen. What went through your head? What are you thinking? My goodness, career, future, a mortgage, a car note. What's going through your head?
Absolutely. So, I was a lot younger than I was now, right? So I'm thinking, sometimes when you're young, you're thinking, okay, I could just go from here to there and it won't be that much of an impact. But I was on a team, at the time, I was the youngest on the team. So I was having conversations with, I wasn't married at the time. I didn't have any kids at the time. So I was having, conversations with my team members, some who I worked with, some who I've managed before. And they were like, hey, what am I going to do? My kids are in school. My kids are in college. I have a mortgage. At that time, I was renting a place. So it wasn't as much commitment for me as it was for others. So I was really seeing it through their lens to say, wow, it's really impacting you more than me. And then at the time too, because I felt like I had a conversation with my manager, and they said, "Hey, Mark, we like what you do. We know you have talent, and we know like you might be more apt to leave and go where the company is going." And at the time, the headquarters was moving from New Jersey to North Carolina. So they gave me an opportunity to kind of sit on a team that was doing some reporting in the fall and kind of year in. And it gave me an opportunity to fly to North Carolina, see what it would be like, and then kind of make a decision. So again, it goes to show that if people know your worth, they're going to give you that opportunity to kind of continue to be in with the team, with the organization.
Just one quick question. I mean, going from the Northeast down to North Carolina, you were like, "Oh my goodness, I won't be near my big brothers now." How, right? Who am I working with? What? Do I have a team of people?
I tell the story that it came to mind like, hey, I'm leaving all that I know, right? New York, New Jersey, the city. I'm going to the South. It wasn't a major city. Yeah, they did have some sports and things there, but it wasn't a major city. However, when I went, and one of the things that really helped me make a decision, when I went, it was December, right? I was there for like 2 or 3 weeks in December. I flew out. I'm out in North Carolina for 10 days, right? Maybe 10 days or something along the line. We're working on a project, and they had like a sprinkle of like what they called snow, right? It fell and it melted in 2 hours. I get on a plane to go back home. My car's at the airport. I get to my car, and it snowed in New Jersey for 7 days. My car is under snow. I get it out, and then I get back to my house that I'm renting, and the driveway has 2 feet of snow. So I got to park in the street to get my car somewhere in the driveway. The neighbor's helping me. I go through all of this, and then I get in the house, and the next day I call them, and I'm like, they're calling me like, "Hey, are you interested in this opportunity?" And after that experience of like the snow and the weather down there was like a big difference, right? The cost factor would have been a big difference. I was just like, yes, right? That is, I'll miss my family, but I won't miss the snow. I'd appreciate having, them pay for my relocation, them give me the bonus, the money to stretch longer in the Southeast than it would here. So all those factors will help me make the decision to say, "Peace, brothers. I'll see you." I'll see you. Yeah.
So I'm going to have another conversation about relocation. And before I do that, because you had a South relocation, and I want you to talk to us about that. But so one of the things that in our family, right, is our mom and dad relocated to North Carolina, had a house built on a 20-acre farm where my mom was raised. And, we got 100 cousins down there. So when I would come down south, they would say to me, "Are you moving down south? Mark is in North Carolina, Cornell is in Virginia, and I was in New Jersey." And I said, "Oh, I moved south. I was in New York. I came south to New Jersey. That's as far south as I can go." So, Cornell, talk to us about that moment of change and you embracing change of your relocation.
So I'm going to be, the real moment for me was moving. So when I got married, I moved to New Jersey, South Jersey. We talk about South. So if for New York, is moving to New Jersey is a big deal, right? Moving from the city to Jersey, it's like, well, I'm moving into another country. You might as well say I moved to, overseas, Alabama, wherever. So that was the impetus for me. The first change moving to Jersey was the big change. Once I got through that, I figured I could move other places. So when my wife had an opportunity with her company, we had an opportunity to move to Virginia Beach.
And I want to talk about the career, the change impact on your career.
Yeah, so the change impact was, I was already in the insurance industry, had been doing that in the Philadelphia region for a while. So my wife had an opportunity. And so that meant I had to find a new opportunity for myself.
Did you hesitate at all? Did you like, "Honey, I'm the man"?
No. And actually she hesitated. She was on, and I'll put this, they put her on a project, which meant she would fly down on Sunday, come back on Wednesday. But behind the scene, they were trying to get her to move all along. She didn't realize that. And they kept trying to get her like, you really don't want to be here? She was like, no, because again, on both sides, our family was here. So for us, this was going to be a change where we had no immediate family right in that area. But I said, you know what, this is I think our son was 13 at the time. We were like, we can make this change. I was like, you know what, let me see something different. The opportunity, I thought there was a good professional opportunity for me also. So we did it. We were able to, you talk about how your dollar goes further. We were able to get a much bigger house, not too far. We're a straight line to the Virginia Beach. So it was a great opportunity. And I will say, so we were there for 8 years, but there came a point where, and I said, a city kid needs to be in a city if you like the city. No faulting of Virginia Beach. I'm not a beach everyday type of person. So there wasn't a lot of activities. I like sports, I like entertainment, I like shows, and that wasn't available. So we would find ourselves in the DC, Philadelphia, New York region, probably every quarter, we needed a getaway. And at some point we said the getaway can be a permanent getaway. So we decided to move back to Northern Virginia. And I stayed with the same company with that move, and then eventually 7 years ago, back to Philadelphia.
So I want to pull us back to something that you guys both were saying with embracing change. Your reputation and people knowing of your work and the quality of the work and being able to support you. I know in the book I talk about it, where one of the times when I was on the layoff list, right, I worked the phones, I called executives that I know, I called people in other parts of the business, I called coworkers, and 3 or 4 days, I had 4 or 5 offers because people were saying, oh, wow, Boris, you do great work. I'd love to have you on my team, right? And ended up one of the times I took an opportunity inside the company because of that. So I want to start with you, because I know just over the years, I've come and hung out with you in Philadelphia for lunch, and everybody's like, hey, Cornell, hey, Cornell, hey, Cornell. I'm like, what are you paying these people? But with you going through moving to Virginia, going through just relocations, talk to me about just your reputation, the part that plays, and how that impacts your confidence.
So I tell people, I'm in a people business. I don't make a product. I don't do anything. So your work and your reputation is everything to me. And I will tell, I've had conversations with CEOs of my company, people who run divisions that say, hey, I've worked out a long time to build my reputation. I'm not going to ever do anything to jeopardize it for $1. And ironically, the regions, I was in Philadelphia, the regions all the way down to Virginia, DC, they overlap. So in the business side I'm in, it's a big industry, but a small industry. So I'm dealing with the same people. I've been dealing with some of the same people for my whole 30 years. And it's important to me to make these relationships because it's a relationship business. Business is relationship driven, most businesses, and it's important to keep a good reputation. I want to be able to, and I want 2 things. I want to be able to call people if I need something, but I also want people to be able to call me if they need something. So I take that very seriously. And like Boris said, it's funny because the teams I've always been on, people say that to me, like, how do you know everybody? Our parents, and it goes back to our parents, and our kids would say, living in the neighborhood we live, my mom would go to the store, going right across, literally across the street, would take her 2 hours.
And so our children would be with her.
Yeah, and they would say, my goodness, we were with Grandma Daisy, we couldn't get across the street. So we've always been a family where relationships are important. We know people throughout, different places. So for me, that's critical to success. And it's just critical to who I am, being able to have, great relationships with people and continue to have those relationships 30 years later.
Now, Mark,
hey, let me ask you, Boris, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
About that. So one of the things that I kind of preach to, people that I mentor, whether it's kids or people at work, I always say that your network, it helps your net worth, right? Or it equates to your net worth because of the relationships you build. It can help expand that, and not that money is everything, but it helps us survive, right? So speak a little bit about your network and how that helped you in those first 26 years, but also helped you in that leap, this most recent leap.
Yeah, you're right. I totally forgot about that. So one commercial, one of my recent podcasts on my Surviving Layoffs podcast there, was a director, Craig Major, and he used to say it's the R's and R, resume and Rolodex, right? Your resume and reputation is what you've done, and your Rolodex are who are you going to tell about it, right? Or who will listen to you. So Mark, you're talking about relationship. I just recently moved to a new career opportunity. I was inside of Oracle. I was interviewing for some positions. None of those positions came through. In the midst of that interviewing, one of my ex-Oracle guys said, "Hey, Boris, we're looking for people over here. Why don't you come over and interview?" So I'm like, okay, I'm interviewing. I might as well, right? I was enjoying my job, was doing great, really no impetus to move. So I had the interview with the hiring manager, and the hiring manager said to me, "Boris, before I interviewed you, I had 5 or 6 people say, hire him." Before they even interview said, hire him, because so many people that I've worked with over the years. And, for me, we are committed to deliver excellent work, right? One, to meet our company's needs. One, because we have a drive to excel. We want to be good at what we do. We want to increase our earnings. We want to increase our impact. So we are committed. I'm committed to deliver excellent work, do whatever it takes, stay up all night, wake up early. And also, as you said, we are people persons. We interact, we like people, we're relationship willing to help others out. So I think because of those things, when change is in the air, we're not afraid. When change is in the air, I'm like, look, I've been doing excellent work. I'm valuable here and I'm valuable anywhere else. And there are people who will agree to that, be references for me, or like today, like here, said, "Hey, we'd love to have you over here." What about you, Mark?
Yeah, I agree. Relationships are the key to most things in life, so whether it's work, outside of work. So, building those relationships and allowing people to know what you do, what you can bring to the table. Like I said, I've been at a company for 30 plus years, but I haven't been in the same role for 30 plus years, right? I've changed into different groups, whether it's e-commerce, finance, operations, technology. I'm in different groups and I have a skill set that can kind of translate and transfer over. So not only from the skill set, but having relationships with people to say, hey, we could change this environment or this team, but we're going to pull Mark over here. We're going to pull. So a lot of times my change didn't even require interviews, right? A lot of times, and there were a couple of times where if I thought I was on the fence and I did interview for something, they either countered back or somebody said, hey, like we can use your skill set over here. So through this extensive career, I've had very little interviews, and most of the time, so my wife encourages me to interview just to have the practice. She encourages me to say, hey, maybe you should change positions or do something different. But a lot of times you get into a role that fits, right? You get in a role that sometimes I have to say, is it fit, or am I being complacent, or do I need to challenge myself? So all these things we kind of think about and talk about, but change is inevitable. It's just how you handle it and how it comes to your plate. So a lot of times that change came to my plate where, I already was picked up. I was already drafted to be on the next team. So it didn't require a lot from my perspective.
One of the things I always think about is that there's always going to be change, and to be proactive and your 4 Ps, one of those is to be proactive. So you're looking across the industry to see where's the change, where's the new opportunities, where's growth, where's new technology, right? In my company, what's driving revenue now? What's top of mind for our executives? And being in my space, the software industry, I can always say, hey, raise my hand. I want to learn that. You need somebody, here's something new. I want to be on the new team, right? You need somebody to be the first one to try it out. Let that be me. I'm looking for and embracing those opportunities of change, because there's going to be growth, and somewhere it's going to be opportunity out in the somewhere out in the future. Yeah. Yep. What about you guys? Are you doing that kind of?
So I think I've told you this guy. I just took a new role within my own company because there was an opportunity where we had a new manager come in while he's here, took a new role, and one of the things he wanted to do was talk to people at certain roles, say, hey, here's what you do now. if you had your say, would you stay in this job? Or if we were to create something else, would you be interested? And that came up just spur, we were having that conversation as he took us to the world. Fast forward about 2 or 3 months later, it was review time. He was in my review. I had 2 other people in my review, the COO and my direct report at the time. He was getting ready to transition. The conversation came up again. Yes, I'm open. My skill sets actually weren't even in the role I was doing. Some of it was, but it was a new industry for me. So that conversation happens. Within 3 weeks, somebody resigns in another union. They were like, and before it got public, they were like, hey, somebody's resigning. This is what you said you wanted to do. Are you still interested? I said, I'm not. Yeah, I'm definitely interested. So what it allowed us to do, it allowed me to go to a different unit, and we're now creating a unit on top of that. So it was.
Well, hold on. So when they asked you that question, were you prepared? Had you been thinking about it? Did you have to go back and think?
No, I didn't have to go back. Because there was something where I knew that if there was, and myself, I knew that my skill sets would be better utilized doing something else. I can stay in this job. I can stay in here till I retire. But I knew I had some skill sets that would probably be better for the company if this was to ever happen. Not knowing it was going to happen, but if it was, and it was just a conversation. He just thought that I want to reach out to people at certain levels and just pick their brain, just see what they like to do. He's a firm believer, like, we want to give people opportunity in places where they want to be. We don't want you here just because this is the only thing here. Because eventually, if that's all it is, you're gonna get bored.
Right.
And find so
what about you, Mark?
I think the same as in an industry that's ever changing, whether it's the industry changing because of software and advancement, the industry changing because where we land amongst other companies always drives how things are going to change internally within the organization. But then also, most recently, a lot of change has been at levels above me where I'm working with new management. I'm working with people who are coming in with new ideas. So that warrants, for me, and it kind of creates the opportunity for me to kind of prepare for these new ideas, these new software, and the things that they're thinking. So it has me changing my thought process because there's a new perspective that's coming in, right? So I'm trying to match that perspective and then exceed that as well. So it causes us to kind of go back and think, okay, what are the trends? What do I need to be learning? What do I need to know to prepare because I have this new idea that's coming in, right? I have a new management team that's coming in. I'm having new groups that I'm supporting, and they think from a different perspective. So I can't do the same things I was doing 3 years ago, 4 years ago, or a year ago, right? So you have to kind of proactively try to figure out where do I need to be, what do I need to learn in this role, and then also prepare you for another potential role. But always be prepared for change if there's something's gonna occur.
I'd like you two to kind of close out with each of you making a statement, just some advice to our audience. And what I wanted to be about is that when you talk about change causes some people to be afraid, uncomfortable. Right. And there's a level of confidence that you need to have in yourself, in your abilities, and kind of a little bit of a positive outlook, right, to be able to embrace that change and take advantage of that change. So just an encouraging, instructional kind of statement for our audience.
I'll go first. Don't be afraid of change because change is coming. And if you're not embracing change, you will be left behind and you will be the change. The change will be you going somewhere else. So I'm a firm believer, don't be afraid of change. I mean, it's coming. And I think that goes back to confidence. What Boris said is your abilities, don't be afraid. And I think I said this, I don't know if I said it on this podcast or the prior one. Our parents always instilled in us that you can do what anyone else can do. Don't be afraid to talk. And I tell people this on my teams. The CEO puts his pants on the same way I do, or she puts her dress on. So don't be afraid to be in that room. We're people at the end of the day. And if I'm confident in my abilities, I can do the job. Why am I afraid of change? So don't worry about it. Change is coming. Be there and be ready and be prepared. Have the 4 Ps.
4 Ps, that's right. So again, change is inevitable, right? It's going to happen. It's like a clock. Every minute is different, right? So the things are going to change, right? It's just a matter of how we handle it. If you are fearful, take that fear and make that energy that'll be positive, right? Just like before any sports event, sometimes singers before a show, they get those butterflies, but use those butterflies as the energy that's gonna make you be successful, right? So there's nothing wrong with having a sense of fear, because that fear is gonna change into the drive that motivates you, right? Because again, people do fear change, but then if you're prepared, something else is gonna happen or be better on the other side of that change.
Thank you guys for being on the podcast. And you audience, thank you for joining us today.